God bless you and good evening. It is 8 o'clock and it is time for our evening word. I am so grateful to everyone who is continuing in this consecration, who is tuning in. You're participating from near and from far, as far as Washington State and Michigan and all over the country. I'm so grateful for your participating in this consecration. I do not believe that God is only working through New Life. I believe God is doing something in his body. And if we will participate in what God calls for and in what God requires, we can have the benefits thereof. So good evening. Listen, we had mega church today. The Lord blessed us in a tremendous way. All the saints rejoiced and we were healed and delivered. We were enlightened. We were strengthened. The Lord just met us in a phenomenal way. Hey, family, I'm so happy to see y'all again. I'm loving this 3 times a day plus. So God bless you, Lovey. God bless you, Mother Williams, Mother Doris, Nene, one of my favorites. Jess, God bless you, daughter. Minister Sharon, God bless you. Elder Marcus Taylor, God bless his mother, was in service today. April, I love you. Mother Hopkins, God bless you. I love you. Deacon Connor, so good to see you. Lady Baker, God bless you. We love you. Angie Williams, God bless you, daughter. Robin, cousin, I love you. Cuz. Vaughn Shaw, God bless you, man of God. Almost thought I saw you sitting in church today, but I don't think that was you. So God bless you all. So grateful to have you tuned in. So grateful to have you in tonight. God is being God, and I'm excited about it. The devil is trying, but he is not going to frustrate what God is doing in this season. I want you to make that your declaration. Hey, Savannah, I love you. Mother Miller, I love you absolutely. Lisa Richardson, Apostle Spells, God bless you. Evangelist Patton, my baby sister. Hey, Sean, I love you. Lydell, man, I love you. So good to see you. Yes, Pastor Tuck, good to see you. Missed you today. And Janetta, God bless you, daughter. Thank you for tuning in. Minister Littles, God bless you. God bless you. You got a good rebuke coming. And to all of the saints, I love y'all so much. I am so grateful for this time of consecration. I'm so grateful. What I was saying to you is God is going to do what God is doing. The devil is going to try to frustrate you in what God is doing. He cannot frustrate what God is doing. He wants to frustrate you in what God is doing. I want you to make up in your mind that nothing that the enemy does in this season is going to frustrate you out of what God is doing. Or I need you to put the challenge on and tell the devil, nothing you do in this season is going to frustrate me out of what God is doing. So let's stay up. Let's stay encouraged. Let's stay in it. Yes. God bless you, Nick. I see you. So good to see you. Kristan, I love you, daughter. Jess, God bless you. That's right. I'm not going to let anything frustrate what God is doing. You're not going to get my joy. You're not going to get my peace. Or Veron, God bless you. Good to see you today. You're not going to get my peace. You're not going to get my joy. You're not going to get my praise. I'm going to dance all over your face. I'm going to praise God all in the midst of whatever you're trying to do to frustrate what God is doing in my life. I will not be frustrated out of this joy. The old saint said it this way: this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me, and the world can't take it away. God bless you, Evelyn. Good to see you. Thank you for tuning in. Well, we have a word for tonight, and I've done my preaching for today, so I'm going to pass it over to one of my pastors. I thank God for her. She is a blessing not only to our youth, but she is a blessing to the body of Christ at large. Will you receive at this time Pastor Zandra McDonald? God bless you, James Davison. I love you, son. Pastor Zandra McDonald.
I bring you greetings in the name of the Lord and Savior Jesus the Christ. I am Pastor Zandra L. McDonald, and I have the distinct privilege tonight of sharing with you a word during this consecration about consecration. But first, it is always proper to bring honor where honor is due. And so I give honor to my pastor, the Bishop, Dr. Jerron C. Williams I, and my First Lady, Pastor General Latoya K. Williams, and to everyone in their respective places. And so at this point, I'm sure we have come to understand that consecrate means to separate from, or it is a form of purification. What's more important than separating from is connecting to. And so during this consecration that we're on, this 10-day Daniel fast, it is critical, it is important that we connect with God. Because if we do not connect with God, this consecration or this Daniel's fast will simply be a form of a diet. And so in this hour, it is critical that we consecrate or sanctify ourselves, not for our now, but for our next. You might ask the question, is it really necessary to go on a consecration? Do consecrations actually work? What's the point anyway? Well, I have 3 case studies I would like to share with you. Although 2 intermingle with one another, it's still 2 separate case studies. And the first one I want to look at is Esther. We know her as Queen Esther in the Bible. And Esther was she was considered an ordinary Jewish woman. She had no desires of hope, of fame, or glory. And so Esther was literally minding her own business. The king threw a party. He calls for his wife Vashti. She doesn't go. She embarrasses him. He gets angry. And so he says, okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm just going to find a new queen. And so Esther's cousin, who actually raised her and was more like a father than a cousin, said, hey, I need you to go ahead and try to become a queen. Esther initially didn't want to do it, but because of the respect, the love, and the reverence that she had for her cousin or her uncle, her cousin who was like her father, she submitted. And so if we really look at the way things were going, Esther technically should not have been a part of the maid's court to become queen. How do we know this? Because she had to hide and conceal the fact of who she really was, of what her true heritage was in God. She hid the fact that she was a Jew, and it was at the request of her cousin. And so Esther, she goes through the purification process. And what's crazy was Esther's consecration was 12 months before she was even presented before the king. And so Esther submitted to this 12-month purification process. And although Esther initially hid that she was a Jew, eventually she had to reveal who she actually was. And I believe that it was through the consecration that Esther went through and her faith and her prayers in God, it gave her courage that when it was time for her to stand up and speak on behalf of her people, she was able to do so. What I love about Esther is that she obeyed the instructions of her authority or covering, and because of this, she was favored above all of the other women. The king fell in love with her. Sometimes I wonder if we cut our favor short because of our disregard and disrespect for authority. But it was during this consecration period that Esther, I believe, learned again how to be more humble and respect authority. And so because Esther submitted to the purification process, she was able to save her people from destruction. There was a man by the name of Haman who hated her uncle and decided the only way I'll be able to get rid of him is to destroy and get rid of all the Jews. And so Haman, not Mordecai, who was her uncle, he also had the favor of God on him. And so when Mordecai learns of the plot about that Haman was planning, Esther learns of some things. She's able to get information to the king. He grants her a request. And there was a time in which she needed to immediately tell the king something. And even though she was queen, she still had to submit to order and she requested a dinner of the king. And she had ended up having 2 dinners with he and Haman, and she revealed who she was. And not only did she reveal who she was able to save her people. And again, I believe she was able to learn how to be more humble because of the consecration that she endured for 12 months. Case study number 1. So the next case study that we're going to look at is Daniel. And so the stories that intermingle are Daniel, we know them as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And so they were youths, their territory was invaded, they were taken captive. And so because they were healthy looking Jews and they looked as if they could work in favor of the king, they, instead of being immediately put into slavery, they were taken into the king's court. And so the king said, okay, I need to make sure that they are healthy and they have the best. And so they were supposed to eat from the king's table. But Daniel goes to the king's eunuch and says, listen, we can't eat of the king's table. And the eunuch was, caught off guard. He's surprised and he says, hold on. If I take you to the king and you're sickly, more sickly than the others, he's going to have my head. And so Daniel says, I tell you what, give us 10 days of us not eating from the king's table. We're going to eat vegetables and drink water. And if we look more sickly than the others, then we'll eat from the king's table. And so Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they submitted to this consecration, an issue that was 10 days. The 10 days was for the eunuch, but the actual consecration before Daniel even got to see the king was 3 years. Daniel went on a 3-year consecration, but what's unique about this is that Daniel put God to the test. He said, God, I'm going to have to prove you in this. And he tells him, he says, if we're not as strong as the others, then we'll submit to the ways of the world. But God, being God, did not fail them. And so when the eunuch came back and looked after 10 days, they were stronger than the others. They just looked better. Their countenance was great. And so they did this for 3 years. And so when they were presented to the king, because God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom, and he even gave Daniel the gift of visions and dreams, the king was impressed because they outshined everybody else that was presented before him. And again, it was because of this consecration that Daniel chose to go on, because he wanted to stay true to his God, that he received favor that was just crazy. And so, again, the king saw not only that they exceeded the others, but it was 10 times over. And that's according to Daniel chapter 1, verses 19 through 20. And so, again, because Daniel chose to consecrate, Daniel really should have been a slave, but because of the favor of God that was on his life, Daniel became a ruler, and he was a high ruler at that. And so this consecration helped Daniel to be excellent in spirit, which is found in Daniel chapter 6, verse 3. And so finally, the consecration, it helped him to prepare to be wise above the others. It helped him to be strong and healthy. It led him to rulership. This consecration also helped him to prepare to face destruction and devastation with no fear or no regret. If we go to Daniel chapter 6, Daniel was known to pray. Daniel was a praying man. Daniel's thing was, I am going to pray. And so because Daniel was excellent and he was very integrous and he did things the right way, there were those who were not integrous who had it out for Daniel. And so they tricked the king and they said, hey, let's do this. King Darius, let's say that for these next 7 days that people can only pray to you. And so the king, not understanding what was really going on because he was tricked, he signed the decree. And so they knew that they would be able to get Daniel because they knew Daniel was going to pray to his God. Sure enough, the time comes. It's time for Daniel to pray. Daniel does what he does and he prays. The men who were out to get him immediately run and tell the king. The king is upset because he realizes now that he was tricked. He loves Daniel, but because of his own word, because of his decree, he had to throw Daniel in the lion's den. And so Daniel, I believe that Daniel, when he walked into the lion's den, he walked in without fear because he knew God was on his side. And I believe God remembered how much Daniel loved him and even was willing to consecrate for him, that he said, boy, I got you. And so Daniel stayed all night long in the lion's den, and God shut up the mouth of the lions. Daniel walks out the next day. The king runs. Daniel, are you alive? Because only your God could have saved you. Daniel, sure enough, walks out of the lion's den alive and unharmed. And so it was the consecration again that allowed and helped Daniel to be that strong. The last case study is also found in Daniel. It is with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And again, they consecrated with Daniel, and they were found to exceed all of the other men 10 times over. And so God also gave them knowledge and intelligence in every kind of literature and expertise that can be found in Daniel chapter 1, verse 17. And so these three men, or young boys, were elevated into rulership under Daniel. You can find that in Daniel chapter 2, 48 through 49, and also Daniel chapter 3, verse 10. And so what it finally also did was it prepared them to withstand an arrogant and self-centered king who had an evil agenda, and he required everybody to bow down and worship him at the sound of music rather than anybody else. And so because the Hebrew boys' faith was so strong in God, they refused to bow down. And they said, no, we're not going to do it. And so again, there were those who were out to get them who ran and told the king. The king he's wroth at this point. He says, bring them to me. So it's Nebuchadnezzar. They go before Nebuchadnezzar. And he says, is it true that you refuse to bow down and worship the statue that I've built when you hear this music? They said, we will bow to nobody but our God. And so Nebuchadnezzar at this point, because he's so full of himself and he's so prideful and he now believes that he's it, he says, okay, I got something for y'all. I'm going to throw you all in the fiery furnace. And not only does he throw them in the fiery furnace, but he turns the heat up 7 times. And so they throw them in. The men, it was so hot, the men who threw them in, they died. And so now here we have the 3 Hebrew boys that are walking around in the fiery furnace. Nebuchadnezzar looks over in and he's discombobulated because he says, hold on, how many did we throw in the furnace? It said 3, king. He said, well, I see 4 and one looks like it could be God, a God. And so it was through this consecration that the Hebrew boys went on that God not only prepared them for the fire, but he also delivered them. And so as I'm coming to a close, these 3 case studies prove that if we really want the hand and favor of God on us, we must consecrate to him. We are living in a day and time in which it would be easy to go and do things our way. We are encouraged to live our lives, to do our thing, to do you. But when we do us and we neglect God, are we really winning? And so the world will tell us it doesn't take all that. There will be some people who attend church who are carnal who will say it doesn't take all that. You don't need to consecrate. I mean, that's Old Testament. That's old. But it's the same God, and there are some principles that just work. And if we want the principles of God to work for us, we have to work the principles. And one of the principles is that we have to consecrate. If we really think about it, our flesh can get really strong and buck. And if our flesh is in control, there is no way that we're actually submitting to the spirit and the will of God, and we're doing us. And if we're doing us, then there's a great chance that we are not doing what God has called us to do. Thus, we are displeasing God. And so again, we have to consecrate. No, it's not going to be easy. Yes, our flesh is going to be challenged. Yes, we are going to want to give up. Yes, we're going to say, well, if I just sneak and do this, God knows my heart. He's going to forgive me. But it's only 10 days. Esther had to consecrate for 12 months. It was the Hebrew boys and Daniel who had to consecrate for 3 years. We only have 10 days. We can do it. And so if we keep in mind that this consecration is not for our present state, but it is for our prophetic or our future state, and it is going to not only catapult us into what God has for us, it is going to prepare us for every snare and trap that the enemy has set. And so I encourage all of us, hold fast, hold on. We're going to make it through this. I love y'all.
Well, God bless you. That was our own youth pastor, Pastor Zandra McDonald, giving us the word. I'm so grateful for the maturity and for the development of the saints and those who are preaching and inspiring and praying. I'm a proud pastor. I'm a blessed pastor because I'm raising giants. And so to all of you, we celebrate you. We love you. This is Sunday night. And Pastor Zandra did a phenomenal job. I pray at 8:23 p.m. you can prepare yourself for rest. Watch your favorite movie. Do something that relaxes you. Don't sin. You ain't got to sin to relax. But do something. Watch a movie. Go for a walk. The weather is absolutely phenomenal. All right, go for a walk or do something and enjoy yourself. I want to warn you again. The enemy is coming to frustrate your present joy. Don't let him do it. I love you. This is Bishop Jerron C. Williams, Bishop J. C. Williams, Senior Pastor, New Life International Family Church, presiding Bishop, Breath of Life Fellowship, and it is my distinct honor to minister to you. I'll see you in the morning at 6 o'clock.